My name is Evelyn Hart, and I'm 72 years old. At my age, you'd think I'd seen every form of disrespect a parent can face. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the night my daughter, Lydia, tossed an $11,000 restaurant bill into my lap as if I were her personal bank. I can still see the moment clearly. Lydia standing at the head of the table, her husband's relatives packed around us. 23 of them, loud, hungry, and proud of the chaos they'd brought with them. What was supposed to be a small dinner turned into a takeover. Plates kept arriving. Drinks kept flowing. Desserts came in double portions. Not a single one of them asked who would pay. They simply ate as though the world owed them a feast. When the check arrived, Lydia didn't even look embarrassed. She slid the folder toward me like she was passing a napkin. "Mom, go ahead and settle it," she said. "We'll wait in the car." Her husband nodded, not 1 ounce of hesitation in his eyes. His relatives stood up without a single thank you, gathering their coats, acting like this was a routine event. They all walked toward the exit in a straight line, leaving me sitting there with a bill large enough to cover half a month's mortgage for most families. For a moment, I didn't move. I just listened to the chairs scraping the floor, watched their hurried footsteps, and felt the sting of being treated like a burden instead of the woman who raised my child with everything I had. They thought I would quietly pay and chase after them. They thought wrong. Because the moment Lydia stepped outside, the restaurant manager approached me and whispered something that changed the entire direction of that night, and the future of that marriage. Before I tell you what I did, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever assumed you would foot a bill simply because you're the eldest in the room? Or worse, because they think your kindness makes you an easy target? If you've ever dealt with family members who treat generosity like a bottomless well, you already know how dangerous that cycle becomes. The more you give, the more they demand. And before we get into how I turned this situation around, let me say this clearly. Subscribe to Granny Revenge Echoes right now, because one day, someone in your own family might try to pull a stunt like this. And if you don't subscribe, then at least leave a comment telling me why you'd ignore a warning that could keep you from being used the same way they tried to use me. Now, back to that table. The folder with the bill stayed right where Lydia shoved it. My hands never touched it. Instead, I stood up slowly, picked up my purse, and prepared to make a move that would leave their entire group speechless for months. They expected a quiet old woman. They forgot that age doesn't erase experience. And I was about to remind them exactly who they were dealing with. When I stepped out of my chair that night, I wasn't angry yet, just stunned that my own daughter, Lydia, had turned me into the evening's unpaid accountant without a shred of hesitation. 23 people marched out of the restaurant like a parade that had just finished performing. They didn't even slow down. They didn't offer to split the cost. They didn't ask if I was all right. They simply assumed the oldest person at the table would take the fall. The waiter, a young man named Grant, approached me quietly, holding the bill folder with both hands. He looked nervous, as if he expected me to break down right there. "Mom, just letting you know. This bill has already been linked to the name your daughter gave when she made the reservation," he said gently. I froze. That meant the restaurant had Lydia's name, number, and signature on file from the reservation form. Every plate, drink, and dessert ordered under that table number was tied to her, not me. My mind sharpened fast. They walked out expecting the staff to chase me. They wanted me to panic, pay quickly, and follow them like nothing happened. They thought I would be too embarrassed to say a word in public. Grant leaned closer. "If she's the one who booked it, she's responsible for it. The system already locked the tab under her name." He wasn't trying to help me out of pity. He was telling me the legal truth. That was the very instant I realized this wasn't an accident. This was a setup. Earlier, when Lydia insisted she would handle the reservation, she said it was easier that way. I didn't think twice. I trusted her. I never imagined she would use her own mother as a financial shield for her husband's oversized, pushy family. But now everything connected. The smug whispers. The over-ordering. The way they didn't bother checking the prices. The way her husband, Travis, nodded at her as they walked out, confident she had the situation under control. They weren't surprised by the total. They expected it. They planned for me to take the hit without a word. The humiliation crept up my spine, but so did something else: clarity. I walked toward the front entrance, past the tables, past the families eating peacefully, past the soft music in the background. My steps were slow and deliberate. I wasn't going to chase after Lydia. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't going to argue in the parking lot while her in-laws stared at me from their cars like I was some foolish elder who didn't know better. No, they wanted to treat me like I was powerless. So I decided to show them just how wrong they were. Grant called after me. Don't worry. You're not required to cover anything unless the person who made the reservation authorizes you. A wave of relief washed over me, but not because I was safe. Because they weren't. When I reached the door, I paused and looked back at the manager. Please leave the bill exactly as it is, I told him. If anyone calls asking about payment, just let them know the person who booked the reservation needs to take care of it. He nodded. We'll handle it. I walked outside into the night air, and there they were, Lydia, Travis, and the entire extended family, stuffed into 3 SUVs, lights on, engines running. They weren't worried. They weren't confused. They were waiting for me to obey the role they gave me. Lydia rolled down her window halfway. Mom, did you pay? We're ready to go. I looked directly at her, not with anger, but with the cold, steady calm that only comes from decades of survival, motherhood, work, loss, and wisdom. No, I said. You did. Her face twitched. What? Mom, what are you talking about? You booked it. It's your tab, I said. The expression on her husband's face dropped first. Then her cousins. Then her in-laws. One by one, the confidence drained out of them. I didn't wait for their response. I walked past their cars, head held high, leaving them to face a financial mess they created for themselves. And trust me, that night was just the beginning of the consequences they never expected. The moment I stepped halfway across the parking lot, I heard the SUV doors flinging open behind me. The sound carried across the lot, aggressive, rushed, panicked. For the first time all evening, they were chasing me. Mom! Mom! Get back here! Lydia's voice cracked as she hurried toward me, heels tapping frantically against the pavement. Her confidence from earlier had disappeared completely. I stopped walking, but I didn't turn around right away. I wanted her to feel the silence she had shoved onto me at that table. The same silence she expected me to swallow while holding a debt I never agreed to. When I finally turned, Lydia was only a few steps away, breathing hard, her husband Travis trailing behind her looking like he'd swallowed a handful of nails. What do you mean it's my tab? Lydia demanded, her voice trembling. You're the one who stayed behind. You're supposed to. No, I cut in calmly. I'm not supposed to do anything you planned without my permission. You booked the reservation. You approved the group size. You put your signature down. The entire bill is under your name. Her eyes widened. My name? Why would they do that? I could have laughed. She genuinely didn't understand how restaurants work because she had never bothered to read anything she signed. That's how reservations work, Lydia, I said. When you sign your name, you're accepting responsibility for whatever happens under that booking. Now the panic truly set in. She covered her mouth with both hands as the weight of what she had done settled onto her shoulders. Her breath came out in shaky bursts. Are you serious? She whispered. All of that food? That total? I didn't know it would be that high. Travis said it wouldn't go past 500. The SUV doors opened again, and her in-laws spilled out like anxious spectators. Her mother-in-law, Beverly Stone, stomped forward, clutching her purse like she was about to swing it. What is this nonsense? Beverly growled. You told us your mother was paying. We wouldn't have agreed to this restaurant otherwise. And why would you assume I would? I asked, keeping my voice even. I never invited anyone. I was told it would be a quiet dinner with just my daughter. That hit them harder than a slap. Beverly looked at Lydia as if she were a misbehaving child. You said your mother insisted. You said she wanted to treat the family. Lydia's face drained of color. I didn't think she'd say no, she whispered. She always helps. She always pays. I thought that I had no limits. I finished. That I would hand over my savings just because you snapped your fingers. She had no answer. For a moment, nobody spoke. The group just stared at her, watching their golden plan crumble into dust. When I saw all those disappointed faces turning toward her like she was the sole cause of their ruined night, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Travis stepped forward, hands on his hips. With all due respect, we can't afford that total. You can cover some of it, right? Even half. No, I said simply. None of it. He let out a frustrated breath. Come on. She's your daughter. And I'm her mother, I replied. Not her bank. That sentence hit the entire group at once. Their bodies stiffened. Their expressions sank. A silence fell over the parking lot. Not peaceful, not calm, but heavy with the reality they had been pretending didn't exist. Lydia finally whispered, Mom, what do I tell them? The truth, I answered. Tell them you tried to use me, and it didn't work. Her lip quivered. You're really going to let the restaurant call me for this? They already have your information, I said. This isn't my mess to clean. I could see in her eyes the mix of embarrassment, fear, and something else, recognition. She finally understood that the mother she always relied on had stopped bending just because she wanted convenience. And for the first time that night, I saw her realize the cost of her choices. This was the night Lydia learned that taking advantage of someone's kindness isn't a habit, it's a gamble. And she finally lost. I sat there at that table, watching everyone laugh as if the bill hadn't climbed far past anything I agreed to. My daughter looked embarrassed, her eyes darting toward me, silently asking for patience. But her husband's relatives kept ordering more, steaks, cocktails, desserts, the kind of menu choices people make when they're spending someone else's money. When the server handed me that slip showing $1,892.11, I felt my chest tighten. Not from shock, but from clarity. This wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. A quiet expectation that I would pay simply because I was the eldest at the table. So I folded that receipt, placed it neatly in front of my daughter's husband, and said in the calmest voice I could manage, "This looks like your family's celebration, not mine. You can handle it." The look on his face almost made me laugh. His relatives froze. Forks stopped midair. No one knew what to say. I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked out with slow, confident steps, letting them sit with the shock they created for themselves. Later that night, I sent my daughter a message. I told her I loved her, but boundaries are not optional, especially when someone tries to play me. She replied with an apology and a promise that nothing like this would ever happen again. From that day forward, every invitation came with upfront clarity. Who's paying, what's happening, and what I will or will not be part of. They learned that I don't fund disrespect, and I don't entertain people who mistake kindness for weakness. I didn't scold anyone, didn't raise my voice, didn't cause a scene. I simply refused to carry a burden that wasn't mine. And that, my dear viewers, is how a quiet dinner turned into a lesson they'll never forget. The moment I left the restaurant, I wasn't thinking about the embarrassment, the chaos, or the stares from other diners. My mind was clear, focused, and calculating. Lydia and her husband, Travis, along with their relatives, had assumed I would panic, hand over my credit card, and be their convenient ATM. They hadn't considered one important thing. I had decades of experience dealing with entitlement disguised as politeness. I called the restaurant manager, Mr. Harlan, a man in his 50s with the kind of calm authority you notice immediately. "Mr. Harlan," I said, keeping my voice even, "the reservation was under my daughter's name, correct?" "Yes, he replied, hesitating slightly. He had witnessed the chaos firsthand and probably wondered how I would respond. "Then the responsibility for payment rests entirely with her and the group she brought," I continued. "I will not be covering anything out of my account. If anyone calls claiming otherwise, you can refer them to the booking details. Every detail is under her name. That includes the 22 guests. He paused, absorbing the situation, then nodded. Understood. We'll handle it accordingly. That phone call alone sent a ripple of panic through my daughter's family. I didn't have to yell, threaten, or shame anyone. I simply made the rules clear. The restaurant was no longer a battlefield. It was a neutral ground, and the responsibility lay squarely on their shoulders. Next, I walked past the SUVs idling in the lot. Lydia's face was pale. Travis fidgeted. Every relative had stopped talking, staring at their phones or glancing nervously at each other. The weight of reality had finally caught up with them. No amount of bravado, no amount of pleading, would change the fact that the total, $11,147.55, was on their names. Not mine. I glanced at Lydia and said calmly, "This is what happens when you assume someone else will always cover your choices." Her husband's jaw tightened. "Mom, you can't." "I can and I will not," I said firmly. "The lesson is yours. Every bill, every overorder, every extravagant choice, they're all yours to face now." The group's silence was absolute. Even the younger cousins, usually loud and obnoxious, looked stunned. They finally understood that entitlement doesn't pay the bill. Responsibility does. And while they sat there, suffocating in the aftermath of their own greed, I walked away. Not in anger, not in shame, but in victory. I didn't pay a dime of my own money. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I simply let them face the consequences of their actions, the consequences they never anticipated. This night was a turning point. It wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, boundaries, and proving that age and wisdom still command authority. And sometimes, the quietest people deliver the most unforgettable lessons. Before you scroll away, hit that subscribe button now. One day, someone might expect you to cover what isn't yours. And if you don't subscribe, at least leave a comment explaining why you'd let a warning like this pass you by. I settled into my favorite armchair, sipping my morning tea, when the notifications began. Lydia and her husband, Travis, along with the 20 other relatives, were finally confronting the reality they had created. Their joint savings, a paltry $1,892.11, had been transferred directly to the restaurant as a partial payment toward the $11,147.55 bill. Each extravagant dish they had ordered, each dessert they barely touched, every overpriced bottle of wine, they could no longer pretend it hadn't existed. As I looked out over my small, neatly kept garden, I felt a calm satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. For years, Lydia had treated my generosity like an endless buffet, and Travis's family had paraded their entitlement as though my kindness had no limit. But tonight, the consequences were real and unavoidable. By late morning, the barrage of declined card notifications began flooding Lydia's phone. Transaction declined. Over limit. Insufficient funds. Her face turned pale as she scrolled, and Travis fumbled with his own devices, panic growing with each alert. The usually loud, boisterous group chat with her family had gone completely silent. Not a single relative had an answer, a solution, or even a word to soften the blow. They had gambled with someone else's patience and lost spectacularly. Even Beverly, the matriarch of Travis's family, had called. "Evelyn, this is outrageous. You can't just..." I held the phone steady and spoke calmly. "Beverly, every transaction is under your family's name. I did not touch my own accounts. I followed the rules, and the rules are crystal clear. Responsibility is yours." There was silence on the other end, thick and telling. Finally, the truth had settled in. The extravagant dinner had exposed not just greed but years of taking advantage of the one person who never refused them. And for once, there was no one else to blame. I spent the day reviewing my own accounts, each balance intact, every penny safe. I felt a rare, deep satisfaction, not from victory, but from clarity. Standing firm, holding my ground, and letting the lesson land where it was needed most had never felt so right. By evening, Lydia sent me another trembling message. "Mom, I don't know how to apologize or fix this." I typed back carefully, each word precise. "The lesson is enough. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Respect boundaries. Learn responsibility." That night, while Lydia and Travis wrestled with their guilt and financial reality, I rested in the quiet of my home. Their storm had passed, and the consequences were theirs to carry. No yelling, no confrontation, no humiliation. Just a steady, unwavering boundary that spoke louder than anger ever could. And in that calm, I realized, this wasn't just about a dinner. It was about a lifetime of respect, accountability, and the understanding that entitlement ends where wisdom begins. Before you continue scrolling, subscribe now. One day, you might be the only person in your family who sees the disaster coming. And if you don't subscribe, leave a comment explaining why you'd ignore a warning that could save you from the same betrayal. By the time I returned to the restaurant the next evening, I could sense the tension even before I stepped inside. The usual hustle of waiters and chefs had been replaced by whispers and sideways glances, as if everyone knew something monumental had occurred the night before. I walked in calmly, my sapphire dress falling neatly around me, and spotted Lydia and Travis sitting rigidly at a corner table. The rest of their family lingered nearby, glancing nervously at their phones, each notification confirming the financial shock they had endured. I approached the manager, Mr. Harlan, and gave him a small nod. He understood immediately. Without a word, he gestured toward the family. I didn't need to shout, scold, or argue. Their faces said it all. They were finally seeing, for the first time, the full weight of what they had created. Lydia's hand trembled as she tried to explain. "Mom, we thought." I held up a finger, cutting her off gently but firmly. "Lydia, thought doesn't pay bills. Neither does entitlement. Every choice you made, every order you placed, every assumption you held, that's what brought you here. The responsibility has always been yours." Travis leaned forward, his face flushed with frustration. "But we didn't expect." "The expectation doesn't change reality," I replied. My voice was soft, calm, unwavering. "You waited for me to rescue you, and I didn't. You will learn now, the hard way, what responsibility feels like when there's no safety net to catch you." A hush fell over the table. Even the younger cousins, usually giggling or scrolling on their phones, stared down at the table in stunned silence. They had never seen someone face entitlement with such precision and composure. The lesson was clear, immediate, and unavoidable. I walked slowly around the table, letting my gaze meet each family member's eyes. There was no anger, only clarity. They were confronted with their own choices, reflected back at them through the consequences of their actions. Not just the $11,147.55 they had racked up, but the deeper realization that dependence and disrespect carry a cost far greater than any restaurant bill. When I finally returned to my seat, I could see Lydia's shoulders slump, Travis's jaw tighten, and the extended family shrinking into themselves. I didn't need to speak another word. The message had landed. And as I sipped my tea, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The kind that comes from knowing you've protected yourself while letting someone else confront the reality they've ignored for too long. From that day forward, every family gathering, every invitation, every expectation came with clarity. They learned that my generosity was never a license for recklessness. And I, Evelyn Hart, had ensured they would remember it forever. Don't scroll past this moment without subscribing. One day, you might be the only person in your family who sees disaster before it hits. And if you choose not to subscribe, leave a comment telling us why you'd ignore a warning that could save you from a similar fate. The days following the disastrous dinner passed in a strangely quiet haze over Travis and Lydia's household. I didn't hear from them immediately, and I didn't need to. The lesson had already begun to take root. Their phones constantly buzzed with alerts from the bank, showing declined transactions and near-empty balances. For the first time, they realized that money isn't just numbers on a screen. It's responsibility, earned or squandered by actions. I went about my daily life, tending to my garden, watering the roses that bloomed just beyond my porch, and sipping my morning coffee in peace. The chaos they had caused no longer affected me. The storm had passed, and I was untouched. This calm wasn't from luck. It was from careful planning, clarity, and patience. I had protected what was mine, and I had delivered a lesson that would linger in their minds far longer than any lecture could. By midweek, Lydia finally reached out, her messages shaky and apologetic. "Mom, I understand now. We were reckless. We didn't think. We thought you'd bail us out." I read each word carefully before replying, my tone deliberate. "Lydia, thinking isn't enough. Actions have consequences. You chose to rely on me as a safety net, and when the reality arrived, it was yours to face." Travis's voice trembled over the phone when he called later that day. "Evelyn, this is a lot. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," I told him calmly. "Learn. This is more than a bill. It's a reminder that choices carry weight. It's a lesson in accountability that no amount of pleading or excuses can undo." Even the extended family, usually emboldened by their audacity, began to act differently. Invitations were tempered, requests for favors became rare, and every gathering came with a new awareness that my patience had limits. The $11,147.55 dinner had done more than drain their accounts. It had reshaped their behavior. I occasionally heard whispers from the neighbors about the lesson Evelyn Hart delivered, though no one ever fully grasped the precision with which I executed it. I didn't need recognition or applause. The satisfaction came from watching responsibility finally land where it belonged. By the weekend, Lydia and Travis had started budgeting, paying off small debts, and acknowledging their overreach. It was slow, but it was real. They had learned that dependence and expectation have limits, and that one's reckoning often comes from the very person they thought would always protect them. I sat in my favorite chair, watching the sun set behind the hills. There was peace in knowing I had acted with fairness, firmness, and wisdom. No confrontation, no shouting, no dramatics, just clarity and consequences. And in that calm, I smiled, knowing the lesson would stay with them for years to come. Guilt-tripping CTA number 4, fear-based. Subscribe now before it's too late. You never know when someone in your life might take your patience and kindness for granted. And if you don't, comment below explaining why you'd ignore a warning that could save you from facing your own family disaster. By the time the weekend rolled around, the reality of the previous week had fully settled over Lydia and Travis. Every notification pinged like a persistent reminder of their choices. Their credit cards, once limitless in their minds, were now empty. Every extravagant dish, every glass of fine wine, every indulgent dessert had come with a tangible, unavoidable cost. And it wasn't mine. They had paid the full price for their recklessness. I had made one final call to the restaurant, ensuring that the $11,147.55 bill was completely cleared using their own accounts. The manager, Mr. Harlan, had already shared stories of other families' entitlements, but none as thorough and precise as what had just unfolded. I didn't need to boast. My satisfaction came from the quiet certainty that justice had been delivered without raising my voice. Travis and Lydia were learning fast. They scrambled to understand the implications of their depleted accounts. There was no room for excuses, no hiding behind their charm or desperation. I had shown them that actions have consequences, and those consequences are often immediate and unavoidable. Their savings, the life insurance set aside for minor emergencies, and their brokerage accounts, everything that they had taken for granted, had been strategically shifted to prevent any further reliance on me. It was a lesson in foresight and accountability, something I had honed over decades. Lydia called once more, her voice trembling. "Mom, I never realized. I didn't expect." "You did what you always do," I interrupted gently. "Expect someone else to clean up after your mistakes. This time, you face the consequences. Learn from it. Let it guide you toward responsibility. That is all I ask." Even the extended family began to understand, slowly but surely. Whispers of financial prudence, careful budgeting, and respect for others' boundaries started circulating among them. What had been a chaotic dinner was now a turning point, a reality check that could not be ignored. As I reviewed my own accounts that evening, everything was intact. My pension, my savings, my investments, safe and untouched. I realized, with a quiet smile, that I hadn't just protected my money, I had preserved my peace of mind. Lydia and Travis might never forget this lesson. Their extended family certainly wouldn't. In that moment, I understood the true power of calm decisiveness. I didn't need to yell, scold, or dramatize the situation. The lesson had landed exactly where it was needed. Firmly, clearly, and permanently. And as I closed my ledger for the day, I felt a deep satisfaction. Justice had been served, and wisdom had been reinforced. The following Monday, I received a call from Lydia, her voice tense, almost desperate. "Mom, can we talk? Please." I agreed, but only on my terms. I wanted the conversation in person, somewhere neutral, a place where lessons could be learned without distractions or theatrics. We met at a quiet cafe, far from their usual stomping grounds. I could see the tension radiating from her and Travis even before they spoke. They weren't just nervous, they were realizing, deeply, that their actions had consequences far beyond the $11,147.55 dinner. Lydia started cautiously, "Mom, we owe you an explanation. We got carried away. I thought. I didn't consider." I held up a hand, letting her words hang in the air. "Stop. I don't need explanations or excuses. I need acknowledgement. You were reckless. You assumed I would cover for your lack of foresight. You misused trust. And now, you are facing the results." Travis added, voice low, "Evelyn, we understand. We've never felt so accountable. It's overwhelming." "Yes," I said calmly, "overwhelming is exactly what responsibility should feel like when it finally lands. You cannot undo the choices you've made, but you can learn from them. This is your chance to grow, to stop relying on someone else to protect you from your own mistakes." For the first time, I saw real understanding in their eyes. It wasn't fear alone, it was comprehension, the rare kind that only comes when a person experiences the full impact of their entitlement firsthand. The extended family had also taken notice. Whispers of caution and reflection had reached them. They understood that my patience had limits, and that crossing those boundaries carried undeniable consequences. I didn't need to lecture them further. Their silence said more than any words could. I had shown that firmness, clarity, and careful planning are far more effective than shouting or anger. Lydia and Travis realized that their financial reckoning had been inevitable once they abandoned responsibility and relied on others to shield them from the fallout. As I stood to leave, I smiled. This isn't punishment. It's preparation. You will make different choices from now on. And remember, the next time you think someone else will solve your problems, think of today. You are accountable for your actions, and so is everyone who follows your example. They nodded, humbled, quiet. The weight of the lesson had fully landed. For them, for the rest of the family, and for me, Evelyn Hart, the clarity of this moment was undeniable. I had defended my peace, my finances, and imparted a lesson that would echo for years. Weeks had passed since the infamous dinner, and life had returned to a calm rhythm in my home. The garden thrived, the roses bloomed, and my mornings were peaceful once more. But the echoes of that night remained, not in my life, but in theirs. Lydia and Travis were quieter, more measured, and far more respectful of boundaries they had once dismissed. Their financial reckoning had reshaped not only their behavior but the way the entire extended family interacted with me. It wasn't revenge for the sake of anger. It was precision, clarity, and accountability. They had assumed that my kindness was endless, that my support would stretch beyond reason, and that I would quietly shoulder the weight of their choices. But actions carry consequences, and in that moment, I became the instrument through which they faced the reality of their entitlement. Even the stones, once boisterous and overconfident, had begun to tread carefully. Invitations became genuine, requests for favors more thoughtful, and discussions about money far more grounded. The lesson of the $11,147.55 dinner had landed, inescapable and enduring. For me, the true satisfaction wasn't in the money or the embarrassment. I never sought that. It was in the restoration of my peace, in knowing that boundaries had been respected, and that lessons had been learned without bitterness or unnecessary confrontation. Lydia and Travis had grown, not overnight, but the first step had been taken. And that first step, firm and undeniable, would echo in their lives for years to come. I often think back to that evening as I sip my tea, looking at the fading light across the valley. I had walked into a chaotic storm and left with calm certainty. The lesson was clear. Generosity has limits, patience has boundaries, and entitlement will always meet accountability when tested. If you've enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe to Granny Revenge Echoes. Life has a way of testing patience, and one day, you might be the only person standing between a disaster and those who refuse to see it coming. And if you choose not to subscribe, at least leave a comment explaining why you'd ignore a warning that could save you from your own family disaster. Justice, clarity, and peace. They aren't earned through shouting or dramatics. They are earned through patience, preparation, and decisive action. And sometimes, the most powerful lesson is delivered quietly, with unwavering resolve. That night, I didn't just pay a dinner bill. I reshaped the future of an entire family. And that, in my view, was worth every careful step I had taken.